Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition, episode number 84 of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Mechanical Breakdown Series, Volume 21, breaking down the swing of Carlos Correa. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever holiday you celebrate. I hope it all went well. Let me bring in professional evaluator, successful business owner, former coach, friend, co-host. His name, we're in the same hat today. If you're watching on the YouTube side, Jake Epstein. Boy, I'm glad I get a chance to talk to you today. And I'll tell you why, because prior to us recording and doing the show, I had a couple of ideas. First off, my fantasy team has officially been eliminated. So the deepest fantasy team that I've had in terms of depth, and I thought I had the best team in like the last 5 years, has been eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. Everybody literally has gotten hurt. Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, who else? Mike Williams got me like 2 points. I mean, it just came crashing down on me, but that's really not that important. Nobody really cares about that. There are some things I want to discuss though, before we get to Carlos Correa, and I'll let you take the floor here because I've done enough talking. That's about all I have to say about that.
What am I supposed to talk about?
I introduced you and I thought you'd have something to say.
So nice to be here. I'm not a fantasy sports guy, so I can't comment on that. Mm-hmm. I figure I would get totally obsessed with it, and that would not be a good thing. But representing a Bryant baseball shirt today, Rhode Island. One of my players sent me this. Shea Grady out in New Jersey. Good kid I've known for a really long time.
What is it with you and Jersey guys, man?
There's something. Hardest workers. Yeah, those Jersey guys work, man.
We're just those blue collar guys, regular Joes. They're just regular Joes.
Yeah, just hard work kids. So
I have somebody like that in my family, by the way, a regular Joe, where he was like a steel and iron worker his entire career, and he's such a regular Joe. And he just sometimes, he says things that are endearing, and then other times you just want to slap him across the face. I don't know. I'm not voting in the next election. Not gonna affect me.
Where's he from? Pennsylvania?
No, he's from he's from Philly. So he's a blue collar Philly guy. So that's, and he's a Dolphins fan, which makes even less
Philly's
sense.
Not in Pennsylvania. Is that what you're telling me?
No, you said New Jersey.
No, I didn't. I said Pennsylvania.
You did say Pennsylvania.
I did.
I can't lie because people can replay this now.
Ironwork, I was like, maybe he's just out west, Western PA.
No, he's from Philly, lives in South Jersey currently, and he actually comes down to Florida in the wintertime because he has an apartment down in Florida as well. But he's just a regular guy.
Regular guy.
Yeah. That's what Jersey guys are. Regular Joe.
As you should be. Yeah, no, I'm excited to get into Correa too, because he's a pretty neat player, and I think he's only like 27 still, which kind of mind blowing to me that he's a free agent at 27.
27. He just turned 27 on September 22nd.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see what he ends up with.
Yeah, it's a good point you brought up there, because he's in the rare category of certain players. Take a Bryce Harper, for example, came up really early in their career. Mm-hmm. And I would argue Correa, like Harper, they weren't even in their prime. Harper wasn't really in his prime just yet. He had a couple of good years there. Carlos Correa, I could argue, is not completely in his prime yet. He's 27 and he's a free agent. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, I think so. And he's a pretty steady guy, just like Bryant, that we did last week. You kind of know what you're going to get every year. And that's, there's not a lot of guys like that. A lot of guys, are hurt, and you can't depend on them for, especially pitchers, right? Like you can't depend on guys every year of their contract, but for the most part, you know what they're getting. Even when they are banged up a little bit, at least you're getting value for, coming from an ownership side, you're getting value for your investment of putting the guy out there. And that's kind of nice to know.
There's some excitement around Correa, where he's going to sign. And this is the idea that I had before we started the show today. We discussed this on previous episodes with the lockout, and coming out of that lockout, hopefully soon, hopefully in January or whenever they decide to reconvene after they have their month holiday. But what about doing a free agent system where we've talked about this, where there's tiers, but doing it in an inverted way? So tier 4 free agents can sign right away. They sign in that period. Tier 3, tier 2, and then tier 1 free agents are not eligible to sign with a new team until after the new year. It would really bring some excitement for baseball and ramp up spring training excitement a little bit rather than, oh, spring training's here. Pitchers and catchers have reported today. Okay, what do we do now? Oh, that's right. We're going to watch the Super Bowl. Or, oh, that's right. The NCAA tournament is it. Tournament. Fuck. Tournament. Regular Joe, Jersey guy. The NCAA tournament is starting to ramp up. I think that baseball kind of needs that rollout from January 1st to the first day of spring training and the first day of games that gets people excited. And I think having a system where tier 1 free agents, Correa would be in that tier, are not allowed to sign with a new team until after January 1st.
Yeah. No, I definitely think the excitement will be there. It's kind of what happened, this year when they knew the strike deadline was coming. I don't know how you do it in terms of the different tiers and maybe the
war.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the more, the guys that are most coveted, whatever tier that is, maybe they go early, kind of hurts the excitement, but you don't want to run out of money. If you're an owner, or a general manager or president of operations, right? And you're like, okay, I have X amount of money. And then in my back pocket, I'm like, I'm going to hold on until January. And so I'm not going to sign this guy for, half the price. And then all of a sudden you don't get anyone, come January. It's tough. Like I see it from both sides where it's, what's the right way to do it. But I
think some owners though would
be.
I think some owners though would embrace it. I think they would love it because they'd say, well, you didn't get that guy. Oh, well, I didn't have to spend that kind of money. You guys are scouts or analytics. You guys go figure out a second or third tier guy, because I'm not saying that every fourth tier guy has to sign between, say, November 1st and November 15th, or a third tier guy. Same thing. I'm not saying that they could bleed into the January marketplace,
but they're available
if they're available.
It's like hunting season.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I think we need to have something like that. Make the off season more exciting because, you hear, oh, a guy signed today. Okay, great. There has to be, the NFL, they have it very structured in March and April and it's reported on and it's talked about. I mean, they do it right. And I'm not saying that baseball wasn't doing it right, but they were a little archaic in how they were doing things here. I just don't think it could be one big conglomerate. I think we have to have sections of the off season where players could sign and have a tier system. I just gave a great idea to everybody. You're welcome.
Yeah. Mark the time code down.
They call me Jimmy Idea.
I know they do. I know he does.
So let's get into Carlos. This is going to be a heavy Carlos Correa centric episode today. We're going to break down his swing in a little bit here, but I want to discuss something. I know I'll bring up his numbers here first too. And people on the YouTube side, you can see the graphic. The one number that sticks out the most. First of all, he wasn't really hurt. He played in 148 games. He was an all-star for the first time since 2017. He finished 5th in the MVP voting. He did win a Gold Glove too. Something not talked about enough, that his defense is still, it's still top notch. And I think if you give him an 8 or 9 year deal, whatever, 10 years maybe, I think he's a guy who can actually, because he's so athletic, he can stick at shortstop for that length of the contract, I believe.
And he's a big guy. I think he's 6'4", something like that.
Well, we're going to get to his size because I have a question about that and how it relates to his swing in a second. But his WAR, and this is what everybody likes to look at too. In 2021, his WAR was 7.2, highest of his career. So there's two numbers right there that stick out. The home runs, highest of his career, highest number, 26, and his WAR, 7.2. So if you were to write a scouting report about him way back when, you'd say that his ceiling would be right around 26 to 30 home runs and a WAR of where it was this past year at 7.2, correct?
Yeah, it's consistent. I'm looking at his stats now, and he had 1 year where he had way less plate appearances, right? 2000, not counting 20, like 2019. He had 288 appearances, or 280 plate appearances. In that, he hit 21 home runs. So, I mean, he really could get now. There's all kinds of things you could look into for that season. There's books out there, but I mean, he has power potential, right? Like he's going to hit for power. He's not going to hit 40 home runs, right? But he's going to hit, he's also not going to hit 250. He's going to get on base. he plays with passion. Probably the best part, looking at a general manager's perspective or an organizational perspective, is he has a ton of playoff experience.
Right.
Like a ton of playoff at bats.
And it came at a young age too.
Right. Like, what you're going to get. You get a guy that feels like he belongs in the postseason every year. He's going to make people around him feel that way too. There's no stage, too big for him. He's going to perform just fine. And he did a pretty good job of that in the playoffs this year with his watch. Remember, he had a special watch that told the time he'd look at when he'd hit a home run. Made me sick, but that's for another story.
Right.
But and then he got shut down, the next round of the playoffs, and that's stuff. But
the watch ran out of juice.
Ran out of juice. He didn't battery with that. But again, like it seems like a lower risk sign for me would be to sign Correa versus Seager. Like, I felt like Seager's, a lot more injury prone. Super clutch guy, don't get me wrong. Again, same thing with the playoff experience. Similar size. I think Seager's probably a similar size as Correa. He's a big guy too.
Yeah,
but he's been a lot more injury prone, for sure, than Correa. So the fact that Seager already signed this huge contract, Correa is, definitely going to cash in somewhere.
Yeah.
And Correa, it's like, is he going to cash in so much that team can't afford to pay surrounding cast for him?
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Correa made his debut at age 20 for the record. And in the postseason, his batting average, his slash line, 272, 344, 505. And he's hit 18 home runs in the postseason. This past year against the White Sox in that first series, he went 5 for 13, hit 385. That was the best. That's hard to say best series because, again, it's depends on the games. It's not much context to that. But those are just some of those. You mentioned the postseason. Those are his postseason numbers.
Yeah, those numbers are slightly above his season average, right?
Right.
His slugging's a little bit lower during the year. Like, he's a clutch guy.
Yeah.
He kind of has been, just like Seager.
Yeah, you brought up teams too, and willing to break the bank possibly for Carlos Correa. I don't see any other scenario where he signs with anybody but the Yankees at this point. I really believe he's going to be the next New York shortstop.
Yeah, I don't see anyone who's got the bank to throw it out there right now. Right. I mean, the Astros, I thought that I don't know who they have in their pipeline to come in and play shortstop, but they must have somebody. Yeah. But for the Astros to somewhat give up, I mean, they gave him a healthy offer, but it was probably 4 years short. I don't remember exactly what it was.
It was like right around 150-ish, I think. It was actually kind of insulting.
Was it?
About it was kind of insulting, yeah.
But was it like 7 years or?
Let me check. Because it wasn't very. I was just looking at the money part.
Like 3 or 4 years.
The money part was not very high.
No. So yeah, I mean, that was. I think they offered him a deal they should have offered him like 3 years ago to keep him there.
Okay, so the Tigers, according to Buster Olney, the Tigers offered Correa prior to the lockout 10-year, 10 over 275. Now, I'm going to look here.
And that's less than Seager, right?
Yeah, Seager was at 325, or it is at 325. Okay. So, okay, 5 years. Here it is. 5 years, 160. That's what the Astros offered.
Yeah.
Now the Seager contract kind of blew that completely out of the water.
Yeah. Probably similar money-wise yearly.
Yeah.
Seager's was, whatever.
So here's a number, not to get too number heavy here, but here's something that sticks out with Carlos Correa, which I think makes him pretty balanced. His 4.1 home run percentage in 2021 was highest since 2019. His strikeout percentage, it was tied for the lowest of his career The last time it was at 18.1. The strikeout percentage was his rookie year in 2015. His walk percentage, highest of his career, 11.7. He's pretty balanced as a hitter this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is. And if you follow the storylines, one would think that, 2017 and 2018 would be his lowest strikeout, percentage if they were, with the sign stuff that was going on, sign stealing stuff that was going on. So the fact that he was able to perform that this year with, under the microscope probably means that that's where he is. I mean, a lot of guys get a little bit more selective and get smarter as their career goes on. And I think he'll continue to do that as well.
So just for context purposes, 2017-18, that's when that whole sign stealing thing was occurring. I refuse to believe otherwise that it wasn't. But allegedly when it was occurring in 2017,
I think it was proven.
Okay, then
yeah. No, I mean, I think they admitted to it, kind of. I thought
in 2017. Well, Correa was very adamant though. 2017, he had 315, 24 home runs. The next year, 2018, not very good. Hit just 239 with 15 home runs. I think he was injured or had some time on the injured list both years, though. But so I don't understand. I'm not comprehending how the sign stealing actually helped Correa or took him to another level. I think that this year he leveled off and showed what kind of hitter and who he really is as a hitter.
Yeah, no, I mean, 2017 was definitely his most productive year.
Yeah.
He did have 480 plate appearances, right? So 160 less than this year, but he had a lot of home runs. Like that was his big year for sure. So, and his highest average for sure. But yeah, this year bounce back was probably a typical year for him. I would say, if he gets 600 at bats, like these are the numbers he's going to put together.
Yeah. Only 2 years of 500 plus plate appearances though. Why do general managers and front office executives, why do they value the 500 plate appearances so much? I'd say, okay, 450. I see that, but they have this magical number of 500.
500 is just a guy that doesn't probably spend a lot of time on the injured list.
Because you think 500, I'm just doing quick math somewhat in my head here.
500. Well, if you play 150 games, right? 150 games times 4 at bats is 600.
Right.
So, 500 is, probably 130 games.
He played in 153 games in 2016. He posted 660 plate appearances. So there's the number to start from. So if they get to 500 plate appearances, it's probably around, I don't know, 100 and
130 games.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking 130, between 130 and 140 games. So, okay, I see why now. All right.
Well, I'd say it's 125 times 4 is 500. 120.
Right. Okay.
So 125, roughly 125 games.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. So the thing I want to ask you about Correa, he's 6'4", 220 pounds, lanky guy, kind of. Very athletic, incredibly athletic. You would think a guy like 6'4", a Corey Seager, for example, which we discussed last week, or maybe it was a couple of weeks ago, it was last week with Bryant, how he was a little bit robotic at the plate, actually at times very robotic. And some of that could be attributed to his size, his height. With Correa, there could be a lot of moving parts in his swing, but he's so athletic that his swing is he's 6'4", and his swing is so incredibly natural. Yeah,
he's really compact with his upper body moves, and we'll see that here in a second. But he's efficient. He's been efficient since I think I did a analysis kind of similar to Bryant, probably on the Epstein hitting YouTube page. It's old. It's probably, I don't know, 7-8 years old. But I did one on Bryant, and then I did one on Craig, because it was like instantly I saw these guys and was like, okay, it's like Vlad. You see him once and you're like, that's a special person.
Right.
And Correa was like that too. I saw him hit a home run like in Boston his rookie year, and I was like, dude, that swing plays. That swing's going to play for a really long time. and he's just gotten better and better ever since then. And we'll see why. His swing really hasn't changed throughout his career, which is pretty cool to see.
Do you make anything of his ground ball and fly ball percentage? Ground ball percentage last year, 42%, fly ball percentage, 23%.
And then line drives in the middle.
His line drive percentage.
I wonder what line drives
26%. It was 26%.
They consider line drives. Yeah.
Make anything of that?
Yeah, I don't see, that's a pretty high ground ball percentage.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't think that, like, he doesn't typically, he's very flat,
mm-hmm.
but he doesn't leave the zone quickly. Like, his extension is good. He doesn't come up and over and topspin a lot of balls.
Right.
Typically, those guys have a really high ground ball percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody that comes in really steep, they keep their barrel up for a really long time, like a Vlad. He keeps his barrel up for a really long time. And if somebody like Vlad is late and they're coming from, kind of a higher angle with their barrel, they'll have a higher ground ball percentage on balls, up the middle or the other way. So, yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe it's just a guy that aims for the top of the ball. Could be a guy that's trying to stay on top. His approach, his mental approach, that works for him. And yeah, it's good to look at those numbers. I'd have to look at the history of those numbers, where they have been, see if things have changed over the years. But yeah, it seems like a higher ground ball, for a league that's going with high fastballs, that seems like a higher ground ball ratio than
and Correa is a big attack angle guy. He uses blast motion. He is a spokesperson for it. I mean, he's delved deep into the blast motion.
But I mean, the Astros are kind of off the charts with their analytics. But again, attack angle doesn't necessarily mean it changes your launch angle that much.
Right.
Some guys have really steep attack angles. They swing up a lot, but they roll over a lot of balls. So, but yeah, he's definitely an analytical person that's trying to do certain things, and that organization's trying to help him do certain things.
So his oppo percentage, in case you're wondering, last year, 22%. His pull percentage, 24%. Right up the middle, 53%.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Stolen base percentage, they don't have that from last year. 80% though. Look at that.
That's good.
Yeah.
4 for 5.
He's fast and athletic. All right. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. Of course, new episodes Mondays, 9 a.m. And subscribe to our YouTube page, The Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast, for videos and full episodes. And email us your questions, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at Jim Tara, at Epstein Hitting. By the way, on social media yesterday, on Twitter, what's the target lady thing? You want to explain that to our audience and the people that from our audience that may follow you on Twitter at Epstein Hitting?
Yeah, like we watch a lot of Saturday Night Live in our household. Yeah. I did as a kid. So there's a skit with Kristen Wiig where she's essentially a target, checker, and she's over the, she really enjoys her job. Mm-hmm. And so my 11-year-old just loves that skit. So she decided to kind of write her own skit based on that character. And then we all had to, play it after she wrote the skit. And, her sisters and grandma had to take part in it. And so anyway, it was funny not to post.
That's
how
where
you, Target Lady came from.
That's how you spent your Christmas part of your Christmas.
Yes, that was Christmas afternoon after the festivities and before dinner. That's how we spent our afternoon.
Filming this nice skit.
Yes.
Very good.
You really should watch the original. It's hilarious.
Maybe she'll be on SNL one day.
Maybe.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
She'll be like,
she's able to, after a couple times, she's able to copy things very easily.
Oh,
voices and
she into like acting and arts.
Yeah, she likes softball, but
okay.
she likes softball, but in the dugout, she gets a little wild sometimes too.
Always, never a problem as long as she doesn't eat actual dirt. I have a friend I played with when I was a kid. He was dared to eat the rocks and the dirt from the ground inside the dugout, and he actually did it.
Yeah,
and he spent like the next 2 nights sick at home, throwing up.
trying to pass those rocks.
Yeah,
That's rough.
Disgusting. All right, let's get into the Carlos Correa swing breakdown, mechanical breakdown series, volume 21. And I will let you take the floor, Correa. He is in San Diego here. His exit velocity on this swing, 105.9, in case anybody wonders or cares. And it's a day game. In 2020, I see the cardboard people in the background. There you go. So go ahead.
All right, here we go with Correa. So yes, cardboard people. So definitely our COVID season here. And an amazing swing. It's a good frame rate and everything. So some of the things that are really cool with Correa, I'm just kind of playing this through, one time so we could see it. But one of the interesting things is he's a big guy that doesn't create a lot of separation. So meaning between his hips, he stays closed a lot, for a long time during his swing. So if you bring him to toe touch, his chest is back, right? His chest is, facing behind his back foot. The knob is facing behind his back foot. His front shoulder is down below his back foot. Very, very good. And you can see his belt is actually facing rearward too, behind home plate. And his front foot's closed. His front knee is closed and his front foot is closed. You're going to see a lot of guys that are open in this position and really getting open with their front side. He's not. Even if we bring him to like ball of the front foot, he's just barely starting to open there. And then by the time he gets to heel plant, if I stop him, yes, his belt has definitely turned. But if we it's not a magic number, but if I say, okay, his sternum's kind of, facing there, and his hips perpendicular to his hips, probably there. He's only in the low 30s. Okay, like here's his hip line, so you can see it was pretty perpendicular. I guess it could have been a little bit more, but he's not a 40-degree guy. He doesn't create a ton of separation yet, meaning like a Donaldson or even a Miguel Cabrera creates a lot of separation. He still hit this ball 440 feet. So, you have to figure out, or Baez, we looked at Baez recently, and Bryant, who create a lot of separation. Know your body, know what you need to do. If you're 5'9" and 150 pounds, you probably need to create a ton of separation. When you're 6'4", 220 and you find barrels, you probably just need to find barrels. So a very good launch position. This would be a swing that I would teach a 10-year-old, a young player. He just kind of checks off all the marks. His hands are at launch here. Okay, and his stride, he has a weight shift. Okay, so he's got kind of a leg kick, but it's not an obscene leg kick, right? He falls forward, from heel plant, his launch position, his hands are in a good spot. Top of his top hand is going to be about at the bottom of his ear, the top of his cheek. That's perfect. His front shoulder's below his back shoulder. His hips are starting to open. Okay. His back knee's starting to come down and in. His back foot hasn't spun or anything like that. It's a very calm position. Then as he starts to rotate and continue through, I'm just going to put this box around his head. Notice how close the bat is to his head. Okay. That's a short path. Notice his head stay in that box. If we bring him to his short approach position, the knob and the elbow are in line. The bat is right next to his shoulder. So remember, some guys are, our barrier is kind of in this position between here and here, those two lines. Some players, Vlad, high average guys, that'll be a little bit more vertical here. Even Buster Posey in his prime had his bat up a little bit more. Okay. But if you just kind of fit between those two lines I drew, we're good. Notice how far his back knee has come down now. So his back knee has come down a ton. He's brought his front heel in front of his back heel in front of his back toes. That's great. Okay. Again, we'll continue. Look at his head. Pretty great. You bring him to his regular approach, and the barrel's slightly below his hands. Okay. So not bad. Not bad here. The end of his bat is in his back foot, so he's short to the ball. Okay, he doesn't have a long arc to the ball. If we draw a line on this pitch, I don't know what this is coming at him. Let's see with the number. Maybe a hanging something based on how much it's dropping. Let's see. Yeah, dropping 6 degrees. It could be just like a, maybe a 90 mile an hour fastball from a really tall guy. It could be a cutter or something like that. But, for a pitch that high and at 6 degrees coming down, usually a pitch that high is going to be at like 4 degrees, somebody throwing hard, somebody throwing 94, 95, 96. Mm-hmm. So at 6 degrees, they're probably not throwing quite as hard. But look at his barrel, right? Like his barrel kind of gets to that line. It doesn't go underneath it very much deep in the zone. So if you look at his barrel, when it hits his back hip, he probably could foul that ball back. Okay. He'd probably foul it off. You can see he's still under slightly there, but not bad. And then once he gets to his front knee, boom, he's on plane for sure. And then most importantly, he stays on plane, right? He stays on plane all the way to about an inch in front of his front toe. So he's got a big contact area. He's a very good high ball hitter. Always has been. His posture's very good. He doesn't lean in. He's not a heavy right shoulder leaning in kind of guy, even on low pitches. He keeps his bat vertical angle probably within -30 or less, which is really great for backspin. But it might be, the reason he doesn't hit a ton of fly balls, I guess we could get back to that now, is, his barrel. Let me draw this line again because it's getting a little fuzzy in here. Let's see. Do that. So we'll go back. What did we say? This was 6 degrees. So if I go back to this ball, 6 degrees, his barrel doesn't like come down here. So guys that hit a lot of fly balls, their barrel is going to do that. It's going to be underneath this way. It's going to be underneath most of the way. And then finally it like kind of comes back up like so. And so they're going to be under a lot. They're going to fly out to right. Okay. He's not going to do that very much. And he's not going to do it a lot because he typically hits balls, closer to his front foot. And when he hits it closer to his front shin or his front foot, he's on plane. Like he's not under the plane right there. And so he's going to launch balls maybe a little lower than other people. But again, like this is a swing you copy. If you look at the weight after he gets to extension, look how he extends that top hand through his right hand, full extension. This is a perfect power V position with his arms, but notice how he's digging into the ground with his front heel. Okay, that's a really good sign. He's pushing back through his front heel. If you ever see players on their toes here and their heel comes up, it means they're fighting forward, right? They're fighting their body wanting to go forward. Especially on a fastball, if you see it, they're fooled, I get it. But you want to see that weight in the heel. You want to see him pushing back through his glute and his hamstring. And he creates nice tilt here in his power V. You can see everything lines up. He's got a lot of parallel lines, right? Like his spine and his thigh line up. He's not curved. There's not a lot of leaning going on. And again, most of that is due to, his head remaining really, really still throughout the swing. And obviously his balance is really good. So yeah, kind of a good guy to copy. And again, this swing holds up. He could cover pitches up. He could drop his hands a little bit to get the pitches down. He gets wide enough with his long legs. But like you said earlier, he really, for a big guy, like he doesn't have very many moving parts. Maybe his stride is it, but once he plants, it's like his tight, look how close the back gets to his shoulder when he goes to rotate there. Like he's just doing a great job pulling his hands out in front as he's rotating. He's on plane. He's smooth, good extension. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the swing for sure. Like I think that's a very quality swing that I teach, and I try to get all my players to have very similar moves as Carlos Correa.
So if I can jump in here and just looking at this video, everything, as you mentioned, lines up. Everything just stack it. In my head, I'm looking at it from a scouting perspective. In my head, everything just stacks up in order. Boom, 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 boom. Now I'm taking it, if I'm a scout here, there's so many things you can take away from this swing and say, that's great. That's great. If I'm a scout, though, let's play Jimmy Scout for a second. If I'm a scout, I'm looking at Correa from the launch point on, because the stride to me, it's perfect, and people struggle with finding the right stride, and that's all well and good. But it's not the keys to what, in my opinion, what makes this swing great. So I take it from the launch. Oh, I lost it. Hold on. From the launch point, he's in a perfect position. Torque, he may not, as you mentioned, you're exactly right. He may not generate a ton of torque, but he's still torqued and his body is still separated. The bat path is very short. It's almost, it's as perfect as can be. I mean, this is what you aim for, this type of bat path. You always mention slicing that shoulder or slicing the trap. That does that. The bat lag, where was this pitch? It was up, but was it in?
I don't think so.
It might be right down the
based on where he hit it kind of behind his front foot a little bit. So I'm thinking it was probably at the center field somewhere.
Yeah.
Center to right center, outer third.
Bat lag is perfect. He's on plane for a long time. And you mentioned digging into the ground, getting, people on Twitter, the ground force. He gets good leverage here, that front side. And he stays on plane, extends well, and everything just unwinds. And to me, the vertical bat angle, it's not very high. His launch angle last year, in case you're wondering, was 12.1. So the vertical bat angle, as you mentioned, not very high at all.
Nothing is extreme with him. That's what I like. He doesn't go outside. Like, in my mind as an instructor, I have this perfect swing. And I'm a very visual, like, I could, as a player, like even today, I can close my eyes and feel what my swing used to be.
Sure.
Golf, I could do the same thing. Like, I know exactly what my body's doing, and I knew what I would do wrong, and I would try to visually change it, through visualization. Like, I would try to keep that, lead arm a little bit tighter. If I were to close my eyes and create a template swing, it's somewhere between Vlad and Correa. It really is. Like, it just, that swing fits most players. It really does. Most players can fit in that realm. And I see a lot of international young players that are, 14 to 16 years old, and a lot of them fit in that. Not all of them, but a lot of them will fit into that. And American amateur players too, that are a little bit older. Right. That's, as a scout, what you said, you're scouting people. It's, does that swing work? Does the swing work? And then what's the rest of them? What's their vision? What's their temperament? What's their athleticism? What's their body type? What's, how explosive are they? How quickly does information get from their eyes to their body, right? So it's not just about looking good at BP, right? I mean, that's great. That's the first step. But there are so many intangibles that have to go into the equation for a player to be successful at that level. It's not just about that. And that's why we have swings that are so different with players. I mean, Corey Seager's swing has some similarities to this in terms of how short he is to the ball, but Seager's front arm was straight. He created way more lag with his wrists and whip because his front arm was straight. His legs were a little goofier because he's a right-handed thrower to left-handed hitter. So they're both uber successful players.
But they have, but I think you can also say too that they have certain mechanical intricacies, we'll call it, for lack of a better term, that they do that some of the best players, the best hitters in baseball also have, and they also repeat those same mechanics that make them successful. There are some differences, but there's also some similarities. But I think with Correa, there's not one thing I can point out in his swing that I say, or I should say, that gives me a red flag and says, "Oh, I don't know about." There's not one thing. Not one.
No, he destroys mistakes. Like, he really does. He's a guy that if you throw it from his belly button to his thighs, he's going to make you pay. Like, absolutely. That's where he likes balls. Belt high, like he's going to destroy. This pitch was in his wheelhouse for sure. Okay. When you get pitches that are down, he's going to struggle a little bit more. He's going to struggle with balls that his, knees are below his knees, even though he extends really well because his posture is so good and it's so upright. He's going to handle those pitches where, somebody that leans in a little bit and collapses their shoulder, has a steeper vertical bat angle, they're going to handle lower pitches better, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what he does is he doesn't miss that mistake. The problem with having those other issues where your bat vertical angle drops and your posture leans in too much is when you get a mistake at the belt, you foul it off because it's really hard to be on plane with that. You're only on plane for, maybe one ball. So he has, for me, especially as a right-handed hitter, he has the perfect swing and approach to do damage on mistakes because we're always going to hit mistakes better. And as a hitting coach, when I would have players miss mistakes, they'd foul them off because they were late or they had some kind of deficiency with their hand path. That bothered me as it bothered them, right? That's when you see guys foul off really good pitches, they kind of, that was the one, right? You may only get the one. But when you get, nothing's easy, but when you get easier pitches to hit, you have to capitalize on them. And so as a hitting instructor, I'm trying to make sure that my guys or girls that I'm working with definitely have a swing that's repeatable and can just run in and destroy mistakes, even if their timing isn't perfect, even if they're 3 inches off, not above or below, but 3 inches off on that swing plane, they're still going to hit that ball hard.
Let me ask you this with Correa, because he did have a down season. What was it? A few years ago, 2018, right? He did have a down year. What do you think when he does go into slumps or he has streaks where he's like 1 for his last 20 or 1 for his last 25? I don't know. What do you think he's doing wrong fundamentally in his swing? Or is it more just a timing and approach thing that has gotten him into that conundrum?
It's a good question, Jim.
Thank you. Always.
Merry
Christmas.
There's always one in there that just shines above the rest. This is that question. I don't spend every day with him, so I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But
just by watching him from the naked eye, what do you think?
If I were to guess, he would end up being maybe a little bit late.
Okay.
He's a
So
guy
it's timing.
so timing and rhythm for sure with him, where he's maybe a little bit late getting going, or maybe his stride's taking a tick longer. Maybe he's lifting his stride foot or his stride knee up a little bit higher, and it's taking a little bit more time. And now all of a sudden, he's a tick late because his swing is based on out in front. Like his barrel is going to be better out in front because he extends well and he doesn't drop his barrel. So if he's a little bit late, I think that might be when he gets into trouble. It could be pitching. Sometimes pitchers just make good pitches. And we go into a slump because we're not getting good pitches to hit. And sometimes it's, we're maybe our approach is off, or they're pitching us well. Our approach is, hey, let's sit off speed and let the ball get a little bit deeper. And then all of a sudden we run it and everybody's just blowing us up with fastballs in, right? And then all of a sudden we waste a couple of bats there. So I wouldn't say it's anything mechanically. He's never had risky hands. Like Bryce Harper has risky hands. He has like a little wrist move right at contact, which, adds so much whip and power, but it'll also force him to roll over balls or miss balls or swing over them, flip his wrist over it. Correa doesn't have any of those higher risk moves. It's just very steady. He's like a Toyota Camry with a V8 or something.
What a Mazda.
It's like a dependable
Mazda.
It's like a dependable car.
Yeah, Mazdas are dependable.
Okay, it's a mod, whatever you want it to be, Jim.
I mean, Toyota Camry, car, it's kind of like
it's a little bit bigger, right? He's got like a V8. It's not like a Maserati, right? Where it's it's hot, but it's in the shop all the time. His is dependable. It's good. His swing's going to be there all the time, and it's got a little power. That's kind of where he is.
Yeah, because I did some prep prior to the show today, and I looked at the swing breakdown you did on your own personal YouTube page of Carlos Correa, and his mechanics are pretty much, he sinks a little bit more into his legs, I think. Now they did in 2015 or 2016, but his mechanics are pretty much, they mirror each other from what it was 5 years ago. So that's why I wonder.
Stride is similar.
Right. And that's why I wonder when he goes into slumps, that's why I asked that, what the problem really is. So I'm guessing you would sign him. I certainly would. I'd write the check. Here you go, Carlos.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of person he is. So that's what, does he make people around him better? Does he, is he good in the clubhouse? Boy, he plays with passion. I will say that. Like he plays hard. He wants to win. That's, you pay for that. He's clutch. He's steady. Yeah, I mean, he's probably a guy I would sign. The only thing would be, does he make people around him better, or does he create a problem?
Right.
That's all.
I've never heard him. I've never heard that he creates problems. I've never heard
I
that.
haven't either.
I think it's always just been the sign stealing thing. But you know what? Him, Altuve, Bregman, you can give. It's not going to change. They're still uber talented.
They're still good, right? They just need to move on from that and maybe get out of the trench, of that stigma.
Well, speaking of moving on, we're done with the infield portion of our mechanical breakdown series and the free agents that we are breaking down with their swings. Next week, we're diving into the outfield. Left fielder Kyle Schwarber.
That'll be fun. He's a fun guy.
He's a fun guy. I have a quote.
Honestly, I'm a huge fan, and I haven't always been a huge fan, but when they put him at first base, and everybody thinks, oh, first base is easy, like just throw somebody over there, if he goes over there and like makes the worst, feed over the pitcher's head, covering first base like by 6 feet.
Yeah.
And then he comes back an inning later and makes the play and takes his hat off and celebrates it. That's a fun guy. That's a guy who's really good for the clubhouse and good for the team. So that'll be a fun. I'll have to do some research on Schwarber, because he has definitely a stigma of he's a big power hitter, right? Big strong guy who's trying to hit fly balls, but over the years he really has worked on flattening out his swing and getting more on top, and we should be able to see some of that. I'll try to find some old swings and then maybe some from last year as well.
Yeah, it'll be a fun show next week. What do you got coming up? Well, you have a lot coming up at the lab because the new year, the calendar is about to turn 2022, and you are doing a camp next week, next Sunday. This Sunday coming up, because it is Monday today as we bring you this show.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So what do you got coming up?
We have big. For me, this is big. I get to see all. There's probably about 10. There's more than that. 12, 14 college players, softball and baseball, that are coming into town. None of them. Well, one of them lives kind of in the driving distance, so it's fun to see players from Florida and California and stuff kind of cruise in the Midwest to train to get them ready for the season. So we have that going on, which is really fun, and just our normal, like all our players, our local players in Texas are really amping up. So look forward to seeing all those players. A lot of players like to take a month off. December's a good month to take off there in Texas. So they're going to start hitting it hard right after the first of the year. So that's
by the way,
at the lab.
When Schwarber was with the Nationals this past year, you know what they used to say when he hit home runs? No, you don't, do you?
Nope.
They used to say he hit a Schwar bomb.
Nice.
Yeah. Maybe he'll be hitting some more Schwar bombs in 2022 if we have baseball.
Yeah. Is that like a shawarma?
I don't know, but
like a Greek bomb.
I don't know. I don't think that it was really that far thought out.
No.
All right, so be sure to follow us at Jim Tara, at Epstein Hitting on Twitter, Instagram, Jimbo Podcast 21, the email address. You know what to do, and we will talk to you next week. Have a happy New Year, everybody. See you in 2022. Take care.